take the social justice stage and say something for the entire world to hear. That, of course, is LeBron James. Are you familiar with his comments on Black Lives Matter recently?
What did he say the other day? What did he say? Let me look this up.
Essentially, he said that the Black Lives Matter movement, instead of being a movement, should be characterized as a lifestyle.
I don't have a problem with that. That makes sense to me.
I don't have a problem with it either, but there is an argument to be made that referring to it as a lifestyle, I mean, a lifestyle doesn't necessarily have a political agenda, does it?
No, but I don't think it's. I think Black Lives Matter is not political. I think saying that people who have been oppressed need to not be oppressed is not political. I think it's human.
So if I said white lives matter, for example, would that be the same thing?
No, because white people aren't oppressed. I can walk to.
I like the recent hashtag that's been coming out on social media in recent weeks, saying all lives matter, not black, not white, not brown, all. And that is the message I think should be forecasted as far as it can go. Yep.
I don't. Sorry to interrupt you. Go ahead.
I think that message is slightly better than Black Lives Matter because it seems to be it's not singling out any one group. It's saying we all have a voice. And that's what I think black and brown people are trying to do with movements like Black Lives Matter. We all have a voice. To bring it back to the MLB, all the MLB players at the games last night took a knee, holding a black rope.
Before the game, though, which I think is, before the anthem, most of them, which I think is a baby move, and that's the politest way I can put it. And if I may go back to your All Lives Matter point, I have a huge problem with All Lives Matter, and I think All Lives Matter is inherently a racist statement because it's not, because the Black Lives Matter, it is putting down the Black Lives Matter movement, and the Black Lives Matter movement is not saying only Black Lives Matter. It's not saying, fuck the white people, screw the white people, only Black Lives Matter. It's saying Black lives also matter. And so let's not concentrate on the fact that, white people lives matter, because we know that doesn't need to be established. Nobody needs to make a march and a group to say that you and I, you and I go that our lives matter. Nobody needs to say that, but people need to say that Black lives matter. unfortunately, in this country.
Yeah. Yes, they do. And the way to do that is say that all lives matter.
I
There is a fundamental difference between what Colin Kaepernick did when he kneeled at the national anthem, like I covered before on the show, and what the MLB players did last night, all kneeling in front of an empty stadium. And what LeBron did. The latter two examples have to do with athletes using their platform in areas where the captive audience does not exist. No one's paying to see a sports game this season because of COVID. So athletes can protest on the field because there's no captive audience. But when there is a captive audience, like in the Colin Kaepernick situation, you can't do it because you are forcing the people at that game to see your protest at that point.
I could not disagree with you more. Honestly, I genuinely could not disagree with you more than I do right now with your criticism of Colin Kaepernick's protest because he did it in front of people. I think the point is to do it in front of people. I think it doesn't mean anything if I right now, the moment we finish this podcast, kneel in my bedroom by myself and nobody sees it, that doesn't do anything. But if I walk 2 blocks up to Amsterdam Avenue where there's a bunch of bars and restaurants and people sitting out on the street, and I kneel and I say Black Lives Matter, that does something because people have seen it. And people have probably videotaped it, and it sticks with people.
So, with that, I assume that you're okay with the MLB putting the BLM logo on the map.
Yes, no problem.
Really?
I have no problem with putting the Black Lives Matter slogan on the mound. I think it's an important topic that is getting a lot of press, thankfully, right now after the death of George Floyd and after the deaths of George Floyd and Breonna Taylor. And, I think it's important for it to not just be a small movement, but for it to explode into a movement where leagues are supporting it.
So,
And players that make up those leagues supporting it, more importantly.
let me play devil's advocate here. So, you're telling me that you would support silent protests in the middle of a silent library, like Black Lives Matter is known for doing.
Yes, if they are silent, I mean, as long as they're not breaking any laws, or rules of the place where they are, which is different, if they're inside or outside, those are two very different situations. I have no problem with it. I don't know why anybody would.
Because if you're outside in a sports stadium or in an MLB arena in a normal year without COVID, your audience is captive. And that is why I have a problem.
I've been thinking about this, Gold. I'm sorry to cut you off again. If it's all about respecting the flag. Why can I get up in the middle of the national anthem and go take a piss? Why can I go get a beer in the middle of the national anthem? If it's really all about respecting the flag or respecting the national anthem, why am I allowed to go to the concession stand and buy a beer and a hot dog while the national anthem is happening? Why are they serving me?
Because you have the free choice in that instance to not pay attention to the national anthem and instead go get your drink.
Just like Colin Kaepernick has the free choice with the platform that he's given to take a knee peacefully and silently during the national anthem to kneel for a country that needs change desperately so that people that look like Colin Kaepernick are in a better position in this country than they are right now.
So, let me play devil's advocate with you again. What do you think of the defund the police slogan that's been going around?
This might surprise you, but I'm in favor of it. I think the police should be defunded. I'm not about to say abolish the police, but I'm about to say defund the police because I think, and cops will admit this, that they are, especially in cases of that, in a lot of cases that they go to, including mental health cases, with the majority of mental health cases especially, they are not properly trained to deal with the situation. Instead, cities and towns should take some of the cops' money away and give it in favor of mental health services in that area. And one thing that I've seen that has worked successfully in Portland, Oregon, and Denver, Colorado, I believe I saw a video about, was having a EMT and a psychiatrist or some other sort of mental health professional respond to certain emergencies because they are trained. The psychologist is trained to talk people off the metaphorical ledge, the literal ledge. They are trained to calm people down in high tense situations, whereas cops are not trained to do that. And I don't know a single situation in the history of the police department in the country, in the entire United States of America, where it has calmed a situation down, where a police officer has come into a situation like that and, drawn his or her gun and successfully calmed the situation down. Going guns a-blazing into a situation that needs calming down is not exactly properly calming down a situation.
No, but defunding it is not the answer. I mean, you have situations like what's going on in Portland right now. And those protesters have every right to be protesting because they are not in a public place where the audience who sees them is trapped. I go back.
You're not trapped, though. I said you're not trapped. You can get up during the national anthem and go pee or go get a beer. You don't have to stand there and watch during the national anthem if you don't want to.
But doing so is a respect, and you are expected to do so. And when you don't, you often get ridiculed, especially if you're a name that typically goes to sporting events. If you're a Spike Lee, for example, you stay for the national anthem, because if you don't, you'll get a bunch of social media huff for that.
Who cares about social media huff? 99% of social media are just trolls who live in their mother's basement.
But that's not what social media should be used for, is it?
No, but that's the reality of social media, unfortunately, in this country and around the world, is that 90% of it is, fatties in their mother's basement, who are 45 years old and 200 pounds overweight.
That's not what social media should be used for. For our viewers, the distinction I'm drawing is content versus intent. The content of the MLB protest, kneeling in solidarity, or rather, the intent of the MLB protest, kneeling in solidarity, completely acceptable. The content of them being athletes in front of a stadium that would normally be packed with 50,000 people, not acceptable. Look at what the NBA is allowing its players to do. Wear social justice slogans on their back. That is what should happen.
Why is that acceptable? That's a form of protest at a stadium that would be filled with people had it not been COVID-19.
Because the fans who are going to that game know that there is a possibility of them seeing that. And by going to that game, they have accepted that as reality.
If I'm going to an NFL game this fall, which, I'm not going to because obviously COVID, I know that it's a distinct possibility that people are going to kneel. I know that going in. I know that the moment I buy the tickets. I know that walking to my seat. I know that,
But you didn't know that before Kaepernick did what he did you?
You know that there can be protests. You don't expect that, but since Kaepernick started it, you expect it.
Now you do. Now. Okay, on that controversial note, I can't wait for the comments on this video. I can't wait. But on that controversial note, this has been Sports Talk from A to Z with your MLB preview and a social justice rant added on to the end. For your host, Avery Schaefer, this was Max O'Neill, and I will see you again Tuesday for another episode of Sports Talk from A to Z. Bye, guys.
Thanks, Gold. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.